Hello, everyone. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy, and welcome to the HorseFrog podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors.
Today, we will be discussing Book 4, Chapter 13 of Gardens of the Moon, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is part 1 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. Know that Kamraun and I are not intending this to be a replacement to reading the books, and we're also not providing any critique. This is strictly fanboys.
In response to us being fanboys, this chapter in particular has two of my favorite characters at their best.
Yes.
So there will be
Agreed.
plenty of that going on.
Yeah. Gushing. This is going to be a lot of gushing this chapter.
Yeah, sounds about right. We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We will try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
Now, quick warning. Today's episode will contain descriptions of graphic violence, and it's not recommended for children.
Chapter 13. The chapter begins immediately where the last chapter left off. As soon as Ralik Nam left the Phoenix Inn through the kitchen to speak with Ocelot in the alley, Kalam finished his beer, paid his tab, and went up the staircase. He observed the crowd from the gallery above. Then, when he was satisfied no one was paying attention to him, he went down the hall and entered the last room on the right-hand side. Quick Ben was seated on the floor, surrounded by a circle of melted blue wax. He was hunched over, shirtless, with drops of sweat running down his face. The air around him shimmered. Kalam walked around the circle and retrieved the pieces for a goat's foot arbalest from a leather satchel and began to assemble it. All the metal parts had been blued, and the wooden stock was covered in black sand. This is an assassin's crossbow, given everything's darkened up on it. And then the goat foot portion of it is referring to the goat's foot lever that used a pair of hooked implements to draw and span the crossbow's bowstring. So,
an arbalest, is it a smaller crossbow? Is that one of the is that what the difference is?
I didn't look at the difference between that and a regular crossbow in terms of dimensions, but the goat's foot portion is what I was particularly interested in understanding what that meant when I looked this up. But I think arbalests can range in size, right?
Because, I think of arbalests as kind of large for some reason. I thought they were like big, so crossbow is a mechanized weapon based on the bow and arrow, which fires bolts. Arbalest is a late form of medieval crossbow having a steel prod or bow. Okay, so they're both crossbows.
So one has wood, one has steel.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think arbalest may be meaner because it's made of steel, I guess, in my opinion. All right, nice.
For a compact weapon, the steel will give you more punch, right?
Yeah, that's what I would think, yeah.
You need more wood to give you the same penetration on your quarrel.
That's kind of that's how I'm imagining it, yes, sir. Yeah. Okay.
Quick Ben said, "Done. Whenever you're ready, friend." Kalam notified Quick Ben that Ralik had left through the kitchen, but he'd be back. After slinging the bow over his shoulder, Kalam said, "I'm ready." Quick Ben stood up and told Kalam he would apply 2 spells to him. One would give him the ability to float in the air and control every descent. The other would allow him to see almost any magical signature, except for that of a high mage. Then he'd be out of luck. It must be nice to have a pocket mage on hand to give you all these buffs.
Right?
The rogues always get the special treatment.
Boy, especially to have someone as potent as Quick Man in your pocket, dude. This guy could take out the Avengers, in my opinion. I mean, dude, he's bad. I mean...
Yeah.
And he's squirrely. I mean, that's what makes him that much more dangerous.
Yeah. And in terms of giving the rogues special treatment, I'm just kidding, of course. All those rogues out there don't need to be offended. I tend to gravitate more to support roles in multiplayer games, mostly healers. So a lot of the times I'm doing the buffing anyway. So I played a priest or a druid in World of Warcraft when I did play.
Right.
You don't really play any multiplayer games, right? You're just mostly single player?
Mostly single players. I do a lot of RPGs. I'm down the rabbit hole of buying a bunch of tactical stuff like XCOM style, where you've got squads, and it's not necessarily story so much as it is scenarios. So, But did you ever check out any of the remakes of XCOM? I know I know you're not playing video games right now, but
we used to talk about it at work all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, the first one when it came out.
That's such a good game. Such a good game.
I got a game.
I haven't played it yet, but it's the same company. It's that they did Marvel Midnight Suns. So they've brought that format to a Marvel fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to check that out. I haven't checked it out yet, but I'm pretty excited.
It got pretty decent reviews. You'll have to let me know what you think of it.
I will. And speaking of, but when I played D&D, I was more of a brawler. I was more the I was not to support people.
Mm-hmm.
I would just kind of leap in like crazy. We were just madmen. We didn't have any really good DMs. We were just kind of playing for fun and just did weekly stuff. And sometimes we'd prolong the campaigns, but we were playing a game called Rifts. That was Rifts allowed for every combat system.
Okay.
Kind of deal. Well, I mean, because it's the idea that you're living in a world, in a universe where these, rifts have opened in time and space. So you could be playing D&D or a superhero or a post-apocalyptic nightmare, which is what we tended to play, the post-apocalyptic nightmare version. So that's
like a Mad Max type scenario, or what?
Yeah, real Mad Max. We were all cyborg.
Oh, okay.
We played the crew of juicers, which are like your cyborgs who are tricked out, and so you're basically you've got maybe a 5-year lifespan if you're lucky, and they just were awake. They were awake always. It's like you were awake. You were constantly adrenaline jacked up for until you died, and usually you wouldn't live a couple years anyhow because you'd die in combat. So
interesting,
right?
Okay, cool. All right, moving along here. Kalam asked if he'd see Quick Ben and was told he'd just see Quick Ben's aura, but rest assured he would be accompanied the whole way. Kalam said, well, hopefully this will go smoothly. We make contact with the guild, we offer the Empire's contract, they accept and remove for us every major threat in the city. He then put on his black cloak and pulled up the hood. Quick Ben asked if they couldn't simply walk up to Rallick and speak with him downstairs. Kalam told him that wasn't how things were done. They had both marked each other, and Rallick had likely gone to speak with his commander. They would arrange things to their liking, and Rallick would lead them to the meet. Quick Ben asks if they'd be walking into an ambush. Kalam agreed that they would, but said they'd want to know why Kalam was approaching them first. And once that was revealed, likely the guildmaster wouldn't want to kill them anymore. Quick Ben raised a hand, then muttered under his breath, casting the spells. Kalam suddenly felt a lightness come to him. Then he could see a magical green penumbra appear around Quick Ben. He smiled and said, I have them, 2 old friends. Quick Ben sighed and said, yes, here we are doing this all over again. Hood's on our heels, Cal. I can feel his breath on my neck these days. I wonder how many times they've been on a mission where they had to work together like this.
Right.
And that would probably make for a good series, Kalam and Quick Ben's adventures.
Oh, yeah, they could do that, or Tales from the Warrens. Sorry, trying to sound spooky. Sorry.
Yeah. Kalam agreed, then sarcastically said, sometimes I have the feeling the Empire wants us dead. He then walked to the window and opened it, then leaned forward with both hands on the sill. Quick Ben came up to join him, and they both looked out over the darkness. He said, we've seen too much. Kalam growled, Hood's breath. What are we doing this for anyway? Quick Ben guesses, maybe if the Empire gets what it wants, Darujistan, they'll let us slip away. Kalam agreed, but asked who would convince Whiskey Jack to walk out on the Empire. Quick Ben said, we show him he hasn't got any choice. Kalam climbed up on the windowsill and said, good thing I'm not a claw anymore, just soldiers, right?
Yep.
Quick Ben touched his own chest and vanished. His disembodied voice said, right, no more cloak and dagger games for old Kalam, in an amused tone. Kalam began to climb the wall to the roof and said, yeah, I've always hated it. They continued to banter back and forth about not having to deal with what came with being a claw as Kalam climbed to the roof. No more assassinations, spying, disguising spells, and daggers in the back. Kalam clambered onto the roof and lay still. He then sat up and scanned the nearby rooftops. Nothing out of the ordinary was visible. They both thanked the gods for not having to deal with all that assassin drama anymore. Kalam told Quick Ben to watch the back door. He'd watch the front. As he spoke, Kalam spotted Rallick and asked if Quick Ben was there. He confirmed he was and that he could now see Rallick as well. Kalam watched as Quick Ben's blue-green aura rose into the air, then flew out across the street. Kamraun followed silently along the roof's edge. When he reached the corner, he jumped down to the roof of an adjacent building. He descended slowly, as if sinking through water, and landed silently. He could see Quick Ben off to his right, moving along a parallel path. Kamraun continued to track Quick Ben's movement from one rooftop to the next. Sometimes he jumped down, sometimes he had to climb. Kamraun used his brute strength to perform these feats, as opposed to other assassins who used finesse. Kamraun's build made him an unlikely assassin, but he had learned to use it to his advantage. This is one of the reasons I love Kamraun. He doesn't fit the mold of the other assassins that we ever meet. It's what makes him the best, really.
Yeah, for some reason, I get an impression of like a football linebacker with this guy.
Yes.
As opposed to most of your assassins, which I assume are more dainty fellas, a little smaller.
Yeah, effeminate.
Yeah, and there's a guy, I wish I knew sports better. Back in the 90s, maybe it was early 2000s, there was a player for it was either the Colts or Bills, I'm not sure. And this guy, when I like I said, I take no pleasure in watching football, but I'd watch him run, and they'd stick a ball in his hand, and it's one of these kind of guys that ran where from the waist up, it looks like he's not even moving. But from the legs down, his legs are doing all this crazy work. So when I imagine him in these big tussles that are coming up, I kind of imagine a little bit of this from Kamraun, because he is a bro. He's bull. Dude, love this guy.
Think Bo Jackson, going back long time. You remember Bo Jackson? He played for the Raiders.
Oh no, that's not who I'm thinking.
No, this is like in the 90s.
Okay, well this is the era. That's roughly the era.
He was really strong until he dislocated his hip.
Ooh, ow.
Yeah, dislocated his hip. He was so strong, he dislocated his own hip yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it messed him up. Yeah, he was never the same after that. Okay. But yeah, just ungodly strength this guy had.
Right.
So that's kind of the type of person I envision him.
Right.
They now approached the harbor area. The buildings were single-storied and large. The streets weren't lit except by the large doors to the warehouses. Occasionally, there was a private guard. The air smelled of sewage and fish. How delightful.
It's like the Chinatown fish market. Right on, dude. Is Chinatown the preferred nomenclature?
I think in geographical context, I still think they refer to certain areas as Chinatown.
That's what I was thinking. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm imagining. Nasty, that's a rough smell. Okay. The docks, actually the loading docks were they.
You thinking Big Trouble in Little China?
Dude, that is exactly what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I'm thinking. That was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. I read your mind.
All the reflexes.
What can I say?
It's all the reflexes.
The Pork Chop Express.
Oh my goodness. I never drive faster than I can see. It was
all right. Finally, Quick Ben stopped and hovered over a warehouse courtyard. He hurried back to Kamraun and said this looked like the place, then asked what was next. Kamraun said, I want a good line of sight to that courtyard. Quick Ben had Kamraun follow him. They could see Rallick visible, crouched on the warehouse roof with his attention on the courtyard below. Quick Ben asked if Kamraun smelled something bad about the situation. Kamraun snorted and said, Hood, no. It's bloody roses out here. Take position, friend. Quick Ben got ready. We are taken to Rallick Nom's perspective. He was laying down on the rooftop with his head out over the edge. Below, the courtyard was flat, gray, and empty. The shadows were impenetrable. Sweat trickled down his face. Ocelot called up from the shadows below, asking if Kamraun had Rallick in sight. Rallick confirmed. Ocelot asked if Kamraun was moving. Rallick said, No. Listen, I'm sure there's more than one of them. I would have known if he'd been trailing me. And no one was. It stinks of Majory, Ocelot, and you know what I think about Majory. Ocelot said, Damn it, Nom. If you just start using the stuff we give you, you'd rank among the best of us. But to Hood's gate with that. We've got spotters, and unless there's a very good wizard around, we'd pick up on any magic. Face it, he's better than you. He tracked you all right, solo. This last statement was delivered with a tone of malice. And Ocelot sure is a piece of work, thinks he knows everything.
Yeah. Do you get the impression that he's like an officious bureaucrat type? I mean, I know he's an assassin, but...
Middle management.
Yes. Yes. Yes, thank you. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Thank you. Again, you're reading my mind tonight, dude. We're just right on the same page.
We're on the same wavelength today.
Yes, we're all right on. Okay.
Yeah. Relic asked, what was next? Ocelot chuckled and said, we're closing the circle even as we speak. Your work's done, Nom. Tonight, the Assassin's War ends. In 5 minutes, you can head home.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Famous last words.
There's a lot of famous last words in this one. It's like, whoa.
We are taken to a demon flying high above the city. Its green reptilian eyes had the ability to detect magic as easily as it did heat. The demon was no larger than a dog, but its power was immense, nearly on par with Baruch, who had summoned it earlier this night. The demon could see Kalam and Quick Ben on the rooftop. A circle of men and women was closing around them, their location given away by heat or items on their person that were imbued with sorcery. The demon was resentful of its master. It felt a surge of bloodlust, and if Baruch had been weaker, it may have been able to break the bonds that held it in check. There would have been slaughter. As the demon watched the goings-on below, it was suddenly surprised by a booted heel slamming into its small, round head from above. The demon spun as it tumbled, then twisted around. Rage blazed inside. Suddenly, the demon was fighting for its life. The attacker possessed a blinding magical aura. They grappled as they fell, their energies enwrapped like tentacles. It struggled against the savage pain constricting it. The attack was cold, and it burned, filling the demon's skull. The attack was so alien, the demon had no means of countering it. The two fell slowly, fighting in silence. None below detected the battle above. Around them, the demon counted 11 other figures descending from above. Their cloaks spread like sails, crossbows crooked in their arms, and their hooded faces angled downwards, paying the demon no attention. With this realization, the demon experienced fear, an emotion it had never experienced before. The demon's thoughts turned from battle to survival, and it broke off, flapping up and away from its attacker. The attacker did not pursue. The 12 shrouded assassins dropped towards the circle of men and women below. One of the attackers split off and angled towards Kalam and Quick Ben. The falling attackers took aim and began a massacre. This scene with the fight taking place in complete silence is eerie.
Yeah.
You know, as they're falling. It's just weird for them to just be in silence. And then additionally, the image of these descending attackers with the cloaks billowing out behind them evokes an image that has stayed with me since the first time I read this book. That's one of those ones of all the ones we keep talking about, right?
Yeah.
The stuff we remember years
Very
later.
much.
That image of them floating down does. And it really does remind me of the scene at the beginning of Underworld where Kate Beckinsale's character Celine jumps from the tower and silently falls to the ground.
Right.
Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, I have. I have.
Yeah. That's probably closer to the image when the attackers went after Crocus from Kroll's Belfry.
Yeah.
But them floating in the air is going to have the same look to it, you know?
It is. And it's, again, one of the reasons I love Erikson, and it is his ability to paint such images. I mean, I've read a lot of older fantasy, and as a matter of fact, my knowledge of epic fantasy has ended pretty much until you, around the 90s, until you jumped me over here into this. But, you know, so few, a lot of the people I love are lucky to get a few images stamped like that per book. And Erikson just does it over and over and over. You know, it just image after image, it always sticks in my brain so much, you know, and he's so good at that. And I've always mentioned the Eternal Champion cycles a lot here, and Korm was one of my favorite because Rake reminds me a lot of Korm. There's sorrow in that. I'm jumping ahead of myself on this, but I just love. I can't believe a man can keep doing this many images that, like I said, that stick with me from the first time I've read the book, and that was. I don't know what year you turned me on to that, Kamraun. I can't remember what that was.
It had to have been 2012.
12, okay.
Yeah.
And to just remember from those some of these things, every time I read them, I'm like, I remember the first time I read this, and it just always get so excited, especially as we get to this part of the book. It just keeps jumping up and up and up and up, but we're starting to get to the good stuff. I mean, it's not that it's not been amazing stuff, but it's like It's Erikson. He keeps getting better.
Yeah, I liken it to Tom Clancy books where the books always start out, it's a bunch of disjointed stuff going on, and you're like, what is happening? And then towards the end of it, like the last 300 pages, you can't put it down because it's all tying everything together and it's accelerating towards the end, right? It all was for some purpose.
Yes, very much so.
Kalam watched Rallick on the roof below. Something didn't feel right. He called out to Quick Ben for them to leave. Quick Ben told him to wait, then softly said, "Oh, damn." Kalam saw two brightly glowing shapes as they dropped on the roof below, landing behind Rallick. Confused, he said, "What in Hood's name?" He felt a slight tremor in the tiles beneath his hands and rolled on his back. A quarrel whizzed past him. He could see a cloaked figure 30 feet away. It raced forward and another figure landed behind the first one, near the roof's far edge. Kalam scampered and dropped down over the roof's edge. Quick Ben floated above Kalam, fairly certain he was undetected since he had used high-order magery to disguise himself. He watched as the figure approached the edge of the roof that Kalam had dropped off. The figure held a dagger in each hand. It reached the edge and crouched, then leaned over to look down. Kalam was waiting, gripping the roof's gables just below the roofline. As soon as the assailant came into view, he surged up on the strength of one arm. His other arm grabbed the attacker's neck in a vice-like grip and yanked him down. He brought his knee up to meet the attacker's face. Bone crunched, then Kalam shook the attacker and sent the body flying down to the street below. What a beast!
Oh my God.
Do you know how hard that would be? All while hanging from one hand, doing like a one-arm pull-up to grab this guy. The acrobatics necessary. And then all the while, he's holding on with one hand?
I know.
It's incredible.
I love it, dude. It's so amazing. Kalam is just the man.
Yeah.
Such a beast
He's just
mode.
so strong.
Yeah, horrifyingly so.
Kalam gasped and climbed back onto the roof. He saw the second assassin whirl around, and he growled, then surged to his feet and sprinted towards the assassin. The figure stepped back as if startled, then brought a hand down and vanished. Kalam slid to a stop and crouched with his hands hanging at his sides. Quickman whispered that he saw her. Kalam hissed and spun in a full circle, then danced to one side where he put his back to the roof's edge. He said, "I don't." Quick Ben said she was putting energy into the illusion, and he kept losing her. He asked Kalam to wait. Kalam's head snapped around at every sound he heard, and thought, wait for what? A knife in his throat? Suddenly, the night exploded with sound and fire. Kalam's attacker burst into view immediately in front of him and attempted to slide a dagger into his chest. Smoke and sparks rained from her, but didn't seem to affect her movement. Kalam twisted to the side in an attempt to dodge the knife attack, but it tore through his shirt below his ribs, biting deep and ripping sideways. Blood gushed, but he managed a strike to the attacker's solar plexus. The attacker gasped and reeled back, but Kalam charged forward with a snarl, ignoring her dagger, and punched her chest again. He felt ribs crack, and followed up with a flat palm attack on her forehead. She sprawled backwards where she lay still.
Wow.
Yeah, the ferocity of that attack. The ability to break someone's ribs just by punching them while you're standing up, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then to pop him in the forehead, apparently kill him. I'm assuming he killed him.
Yeah, at a minimum, he knocked her out.
Yeah. Goodness, love it.
Kalam sank to one knee and drank in air in deep gulps. He said, "Wait, you said. Damn it. What the hell's wrong with you, Quick?" He pushed a bit of cloth into his wound to attempt to stem the flow of blood. Quickman had not responded, and he called out to him again. There was no reply. Looking down, he saw the roof where Rallick and his two attackers had been was empty. He groaned softly and sank to his knees. He had heard two booms in close succession as the woman had attacked him. It had been an exchange of magic. He wondered if there had been another attacker, a wizard. Quick Ben had damaged the one that had attacked Kalam, but had something damaged Quick Ben? "Oh, Hood," he whispered as he looked around. Back to Rallick's point of view. The first sign of trouble had been a sharp blow between his shoulder blades, which caused the air to burst from his lungs and prevented any movement. He knew he'd been hit by a quarrel, but the jazzerate armor under his shirt had withstood the impact. The head of the quarrel had pierced the armor, but didn't have the energy to penetrate deeper. Jazzerate armor is armor with overlapping scales. I wonder how Rallick's able to move silently wearing it, even if it is under his shirt.
Skill, baby. He's the man. He's one of the 2 best assassins in the whole series. So, well, I also assume what's funny in this scene, he hasn't actually moved. He was just laying on the roof, just kind of monitoring a situation. So maybe he's smart and just has a piece on his back, and maybe to kind of cover his butt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
quite literally.
I mentioned a lot of the assassins earlier might have effeminate builds. I never got that from Rallick either. So Rallick is also like a very masculine figure in this.
Yeah. And I've always wondered, I don't want to see it, but I've always wondered what a fight between Rallick and Kalam would be like. That'd be rough. But I would love to see those 2 working together against a band of assassins or something like that. That would be cool.
Yeah. Super cute.
Super cute.
Yeah.
Clown, curly hair, smiley face.
That's your allotment of South Park references for the evening, sir.
Okay, I've used it. No, I'm just kidding. I have no more.
Okay. Rallick heard a pair of footsteps approaching him from behind. Ocelot called up asking what was happening.
I'm sorry. I just have this impression. It's like all this craziness is going up here, and Ocelot's mad, going, "What's going on? What's going on there?" It's like,
yeah. I'm telling you, man, just a bad middle manager in a corporation.
Absolutely. Oh.
The footsteps stopped, and Rallick heard the soft clacking of a crossbow being cocked. His wind returned, and the numbness in his body began to fade. His weapon lay beside him, ready. Ocelot called out to him again. Rallick heard a footfall behind him and to the left. In one motion, he rolled onto his back, picked up his crossbow, set up, and fired. The assassin was less than 15 feet away and was thrown back when hit by the quarrel. Its weapon flew from its hands. Rallick saw the second attacker and heaved himself to the side. The attacker fired his crossbow. The quarrel struck Rallick in the upper chest on the right, then ricocheted off past his head into the darkness. Rallick struggled to his feet and unsheathed his knife. The assassin took a step forward, then backed away to the far edge of the roof and dropped over the side. Ocelot's voice came from beside Rallick. He said, "Hood's breath." Rallick couldn't see anyone. Ocelot said, "He saw my magic. Good work on the first one, Nom. Maybe we can finally determine who these people are." Rallick said, "I don't think so," and watched as an incandescent shimmer wreathed the body as it disappeared. Ocelot cursed, then said, "Some kind of recall spell." He appeared in front of Rallick and snarled, "We set the trap, we end up dead." Rallick said nothing. He reached over his shoulder and pulled the quarrel out of his back. He was certain the man that had followed him had nothing to do with these other attackers. He looked up to where Kalam had been on the rooftop and saw a flash of red and yellow light, then heard a double thunderclap. In that instant, he saw a silhouetted figure on the roof's edge, defending itself from a frontal attack. The flash winked out and darkness returned. Ocelot recognized the high-powered magery and prompted Rallick to leave with him. They left quickly, climbing down into the warehouse courtyard.
So that's happening at the exact same time as what's going on with Kalam and Quick Ben.
Yeah, and I do like how the chaos of the scene is brought to life through seeing what's happening through different perspectives.
Yes.
The people don't know individually the entire picture, and Erikson does a good job of displaying that, right, through how he describes their experiences.
Yeah, I very much enjoy the way when he does that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. We are taken to Sari, who is following Crocus. Now that she had marked both the fat little man and the coin bearer, she could find them with little effort. Though she'd intended to follow Kruppa after meeting with Kalam and Quick Ben, something had drawn her to the coin bearer instead. She had a suspicion that his actions were more important than Kruppa's meanderings for now. The coin bearer was the last of Opan's influence and the god's most vital player in the game. So far, she'd eliminated the other potential players, Perrin and the claw leader in Pale, the one she had garroted. She removed others on her path to the bridge burners as well, but only when necessary. I find it interesting that she doesn't know Perrin lives. Shadowthrone was there at Hood's Gate and saved Perrin when he made a deal.
Right.
Shadowthrone and Cotillion must not be communicating as much as we thought.
Well, I also have a question about that. In the possession style, is it fully driven by Cotillion / the rope all the time? Or is it like he has imprinted this person and this person is like a copy of himself functioning autonomously?
Given he still doesn't know Perrin's alive, I have to think it's the one where he is basically embodying her in spirit. Yeah, he's in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. But I was just kind of curious because I hadn't thought about that until you pointed that out. Because those two, I always get the impression that those two are just inseparable, and for him to know, to not know this is kind of strange to me. I think you're getting at the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are definitely in alignment on many things, and I have to think their communication is really good. So this is an oddity to me. But I mean, that's given knowledge that we have of stuff later.
That's true.
So that's kind of where some of that insight's coming from. At this point, if this is the first time reading through the series, I wouldn't expect anybody to know that much about their communication level. But it just is surprising.
It's not vitally important. Yeah, it's just...
Yeah. Also, this point of the Claw leader getting garroted, this is confirmation of who did it. And I remember us laughing about that earlier in the book. We just thought it was someone in the army taking care of business after delivering the message to the surviving bridge burners after the collapse of the tunnels on them. You remember?
Yeah. I remember that exactly. Yeah. It's so funny that we were talking about that. And then to have her confirm this, oh, I did it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I guess the guy just happened to be a Claw leader too. So
right. Well,
maybe that was the main reason.
Well, we do. We you know what? We know there's animosity between the Claw and this individual.
Yeah. Again, stuff we can't talk about.
It's foreknowledge. Yes. Sorry. Nothing y'all need to know about yet. Stay tuned for a couple of years. We'll get there.
Yes. Sari knew the coin bearer would have to die, but something within her fought the conclusion, and she didn't recognize its source. She'd been taken 2 years ago and born a killer. Her body was a young girl's body whose mind was no match for the power that overwhelmed and obliterated it. There was a question of whether the mind had been obliterated. The coin had touched something inside of her, and the voice that awoke when Whiskey Jack had said the word seer spoke with power and determination. No memories of any dealings with a seer came to mind from the last 2 years. She turned her mind to Crocus, wondering what he was up to. On the surface, it looked like a simple theft. She had watched him study the window of the estate, waiting for the light inside to be extinguished.
I think that this actually answered our question for us. And I think that it sounds like he's fully driving. The Cotillion sounds like he's fully in possession, control of Sari, right? I mean, that's how I read that.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Cool. I answered my own question. Thank you.
As he climbed, Crocus had not seen her watching him since she was wrapped in unnatural shadows. He climbed with impressive grace and skill. He's climbing that mountain with determination.
Free solo style. Yes, he is. Oh.
She had moved to a better vantage point of the balcony. This had been in the garden, and she had killed the lone guard. She stood under a tree watching. Crocus had already reached it and picked the lock, then entered the room. She noted his skill, but questioned the nearly half an hour he spent within the chamber. Why would he stay so long if he was robbing? She'd heard no alarms or any lights indicating something had gone awry. So what was taking him so long? Sari stiffened when she felt sorcery bloom in another part of Darujistan. It was a flavor known to her. I think that's quick, Ben. You agree?
I don't know. I'm thinking when last chapter when she found Ben and Kalam, she found him due to his tie to shadow.
That was the thread of shadow.
That was just that one side of him. But do you think that she now know where she is as well, or is this going to be somebody else? Is this going to be the other people? Is going to be is this the Tist?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I believe she's been around Quick Ben enough to see him do more than just that one little shadow thing. So she's familiar with him casting magic.
Yeah, and think about this too. We also have that demon, and with the arrival of that group, I'm wondering if this is going on at the same. What is our time frame here? Is this, are they doing this when they sense the sorcery? Is that the start of that battle that she's sensing there?
Pearl being summoned.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Is she thinking about? Is this Pearl, or is this going to be possibly what is what they're sensing the stuff from the mage battle, or not the mage battle, but the assassins? Well, it is kind of magic, but
I assumed it was the mage battle.
Okay.
I don't think we've jumped that far forward in the timeline yet for
That's what I'm thinking too.
The demon yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sari hesitated, unsure of whether to leave and investigate the magic emanation or stay with Crocus. Suddenly she saw something behind the sliding doors on the balcony that ended her indecision. Sweat was running down Crocus's face, and he had to repeatedly wipe it from his eyes. He'd beaten the new triggers set in place, one on the balcony and a tripwire at the latch. He now padded up to the makeup table. He froze when he reached it, unable to move, and thought, "Idiot! What am I doing here?" Her breathing was soft and regular behind him, like the breath of a dragon, he thought to himself, and was almost certain he could feel it gusting down the back of his neck. He's really having trouble with this situation, really psyching himself out, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. This girl's really got to him.
Yeah. He's all messed up.
Oh, dude, she's got him. This guy. I'm sorry.
Crocus looked at his reflection in the mirror and wondered what was happening to him. He removed the contents of the bag and placed everything back where he'd gotten it from. When he finished, he looked up and saw another face behind his in the mirror, watching him from the bed. I tell you what, man, I'd jump right out of my socks.
You're right.
That's something straight out of The Ring or, some horror movie.
Absolutely. Oh.
This reminds me of another kid's story. This was when I was living up in Dallas, actually.
Okay.
It was like 3 a.m. When we used to close, we'd get home like 1:30 or something like that. Then I'd have to eat something and stay up for a while afterwards, right? So it was about 3 in the morning. I was kind of turning all the lights off and everything. And my second son, he was the youngest at that time. He was about 18 months old probably. I'm turning the lights off, and I turn around to walk down the hallway towards my bedroom, and he's standing there staring at me. And he's holding his blankets at like 3 a.m. And I jumped. And then I looked back, and he was gone.
Oh, no, that's awful, dude. You're being stalked by your young one. That's creepy.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the way it happened cracks me up, It really shocked me. Him being there. Just standing there staring at me and then disappearing like that just immediately.
Oh, that's great.
The maiden whispered, "Since you're putting it all back, I'd prefer the proper arrangement. My makeup jar goes to the left of the mirror. The hairbrush goes to the right. Have you my earrings as well?
Wow.
Just leave them on the dresser." Man. Sassy. That's not a really good first impression,
No. She should have put it all in the scarf and just hucked it to her on the bed and laughed, but no. No. It's just like, whatever. There you go.
Crocus groaned. He'd forgotten to cover his face. He said, "Don't try anything. I've returned everything, and now I'll leave. Understand?" The girl pulled the blankets up around her and moved to the end of her bed. She said, "Threats won't work, thief. All I need do is scream, and my father's master guardsman will be here in seconds. Would you cross your dagger with his short sword?" Crocus told her he wouldn't. He'd put the dagger against her throat instead, noting the guard wouldn't swing at him if she was between them. She paled and said a thief would lose a hand, but kidnapping a highborn would lead him to the high gallows. Crocus tried to play the situation off by shrugging. He glanced to the balcony and wondered how long it would take him to get outside and onto the roof. The girl told him to stay where he was. She was lighting a lantern. Crocus asked why, and she told him she wanted to see him better. He snarled, "What's the point in seeing me better? Just call your damn guards and have me arrested. Be done with it." He then pulled out her silk turban from his shirt and placed it on the tabletop. He told her that was all of it. She looked at the turban and shrugged. She said, "That was to be part of my costume for the fete. I've since found a nicer one." He again asked what she wanted with him. She was momentarily fearful at his outburst, then smiled and said, I wish to know why a thief who succeeded in stealing all my jewels should now be returning them. That isn't something thieves usually do. With good reason, he said, and took a step forward. He stopped when she recoiled onto her bed. He raised a hand and said, Sorry, didn't mean to frighten you. Only, I want to see you better, that's all. She asked why. Crocus didn't have an answer and thought he couldn't simply tell her he'd fallen madly in love with her. He simply blurted, What's your name? She said, Chalice Darl, what's yours? He rolled his eyes and said, Of course, you would be named something like that. He glared at her and said, My name? None of your business. Thieves don't introduce themselves to their victims.
I would wonder which one's the victim here.
Yeah. He's the victim of his testosterone right now.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right. Exactly.
Her eyebrows rose and she said, Victim? But I'm no longer a victim, am I? You've settled that by returning. I'd think you're more or less obliged to tell me your name, considering what you're doing. And you must be the type who treats obligations seriously, no matter how strange they seem. Crocus frowned and thought, what was she talking about? And how could she know about his thoughts on obligations? And even more, why was she right? Don't do it, Crocus. Don't fall for it.
Too late. Too late.
He said, My name is Crocus Younghand, and you're the daughter of the highborn Darl, who all those suitors are lining up to be introduced to. But one day, you'll see me in that line, Chalice, and only you will know where you last saw me. It'll be a formal introduction, and I'll bring a gift, as is correct. His own words horrified him, as they should.
Do me.
Her eyes were wide and bright with emotion, one he'd had no hope of understanding. Then she burst out laughing. Crushed. Ego gone.
Sorry, Crocus. You're better off without this one, though.
Yeah. Chalice clapped a hand over her mouth, then jolted forward on the bed. She said, You'd better go, Crocus. Someone will have heard me. Quickly, and beware the tripwire. Crocus moved woodenly. Her laughter had crushed his dreams. He felt dead inside. Her blankets had fallen around her, and again he noted her lack of clothing. He was surprised that she didn't seem to notice. They heard an indistinct voice down the hallway. She hissed, Hurry, you fool! It reminds me of Gandalf in the Mines of Moria.
Right.
Fly, you fools!
Oh my gosh, I've been wanting to watch it so bad. Like I don't know why. Why I want to watch Lord of the Rings lately. It's been a while.
Alarm bells went off in his head, and he realized he had to move fast. He stepped over the tripwire and opened the door, then paused to look back. She clutched the blankets about herself, and he smiled at the small victory. There was a knock at the door. Crocus emerged on the balcony and almost fell when he looked down into the garden. Instead of the guard, he saw Sari staring up at him. Though she was cloaked, something in him triggered instant recognition. She was looking at him with dark eyes that seemed to burn him deep inside. That's 2 times in as many minutes that I jump out of my skin.
Oh, I know it. Oh.
The door to Chalice's room opened, and he shook himself awake and thought, Damn that woman anyway. Damn both of them. He's already turning against it.
Yeah. Poor Crocus.
He's going emo.
Yeah, he is.
He grasped the eaves about his head and swung up and out of sight. Back to Kalam. Yes. He crouched motionless in the middle of the rooftop with a knife in each hand. The night was silent, the air tense and heavy. Long minutes passed. At times, he'd think he was alone, that Quickben and the other wizard had left the roof, hunting each other in the sky overhead or in the streets below. Then he'd hear something or feel a wisp of wind on his cheek to make him feel otherwise. Suddenly before his eyes, the darkness was shattered. Kalam could see 2 shapes hovering overhead. The assassin had found Quickben and launched a bolt of fire that stunned him. The assassin then quickly closed the distance with Quickben. Kalam surged to intercept the attacker, but Quickben vanished and appeared behind the assassin. A blue flash of power burst from Quickben's hands and struck the assassin full in the back. The man tumbled through the air, his clothes on fire. Quickben whirled to Kalam and yelled at him to get moving. Kalam ran with Quickben flying beside him. As they reached the edge of the roof, Kalam turned and saw the assassin had put the flames out and was now joined by 2 others. Quick Ben said, "Jump, I'll stall them." Kalam asked, "With what?" Quick Ben pulled a small vial out and hurled it at the attackers. It hit the ground and shattered. The 3 assassins paused. A figure began to take shape within the white smoke that had begun to appear. The shape was insubstantial. All that was visible was 2 black slits for its eyes. They turned to Quick Ben. In the voice of a child, it said, "You are not Master Tayshrin." I love how he stole one of Tayshrin's demons.
I know. I love how bold he is. I mean, we already love how bold Quick is, but imagine the skill to take that from the Empire's High Mage.
I have to think he's more skilled than Tayshrin.
Oh, well, we know. So, I mean, that's why. But even Quick respects Tayshrin as far as power goes. So
he does, yeah. Mm-hmm. Quick Ben said, "That's right, but I'm in his legion. Your service remains with the Empire." He then pointed across the roof and said, "There are 3 who are the Empire's enemies, demon. Tist and D, here to oppose the Malazan Empire." This is the first official confirmation we have that the assassins are Tist and D. There have been hints thus far to lead us to that conclusion, but now it's openly stated.
Yeah.
The Korvala demon softly said, "My name is Pearl," and turned to the 3 assassins who had spread out along the far edge of the roof. In a surprised voice, the demon said, "They are not fleeing." Quick Ben wiped sweat from his forehead. He saw Kalam waiting down in the alley below. He said, "I know." The observation unnerved him, since one of these demons could level the city if it so chose. Yet another point of escalation.
Yeah.
We aren't given much of an explanation as to what a Korvala demon is until much later in the books.
Yeah.
Pearl faced Quick Ben again and said, "They accept my challenge. Should I pity them?" Quick Ben said, "No, just kill them and be done with it." Pearl then asked if it would return to Tayshrin when done. Quick Ben said yes. Pearl asked his name. Quick Ben hesitated, then said, "Ben Adafon Delat." Pearl said, "You are supposed to be dead. Your name is so marked on the scrolls of those high mages who fell to the Empire in 7 cities.
So he is a high mage.
Yeah. That's why he goes by Quick Ben, too.
Yeah. Yes, it is. But so I forgot that he's actually listed as a high mage. So, yes, there we go.
Mm-hmm. Pearl lifted its gaze and saw glowing figures descending from above, 5 in the first wave and another in the second. The last figure radiated such power that Quick Ben shrank back. His blood was chilled. There was something long and narrow strapped to its back. In a sad tone, Pearl said, "Ben Adafon Delat, see the last who comes. You send me to my death." Quick Ben whispered, "I know." Pearl said, "Flee, then. I will hold them enough to ensure your escape, no more." Quick Ben sank past the roofline. Before passing from sight, Pearl asked him, "Ben Adafon Delat, do you pity me?" Quick Ben softly said, "Yes," then turned and dropped down into darkness. That really hits me in the heart.
It does.
At this stage of the book, I can't really say why, but those that are rereading may share some of that feeling.
I, too, was saddened by this part, and more so on the read-through. I mean, it's just because you get this idea that, yeah, he knows he's being sent to his death, and he can't do anything about it, but go meet it.
Yeah. I mean, he's enslaved, right?
Yeah.
And he has to do what the master's bidding.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, we're going to stop there, and we'll come back and finish this next week. I know that's kind of a cliffhanger right there, because we're about to get into what happens immediately when those people land. For standout moments, Quick Ben casting the spells on Kalam and their back and forth when preparing for this mission. I like to see that.
I love preparations too. I like that. It's the training montage.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They're getting geared up. I love it.
Their pursuit of Rallick across the rooftops was also pretty cool.
Yeah, and for the rest of this chapter in particular, but the book, we start. I love the ever increasing stakes, and we start getting more and more breakneck as we go.
Yeah, it slowed down a little bit with Sari and Crocus interrupting the action, but outside of that, I was flying reading through this.
And I guess this is where I'm more talking about Crocus being more emo as he's going through the true love. I love you, Chalice. Love you, Chalice. I've been loving you.
The other thing that I really liked, the assailants floating down from the sky.
Yes.
That imagery is so cool. To see that on a big screen would be amazing.
Oh, I know it. And see, and one of the Final Fantasies I like to play, this has some of that imagery in that. There is one in 13 where these soldiers use some of this gear that they fall pretty normal speed, but it's that last 10 feet. It's like hitting a pillow of air, and then they walk out of it. And it's like, I have that same kind of image, and I love that. That is so cool. With the cool floating landing is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Then seeing Kalam fight. I think that's the first time we actually saw him fight, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's been prepared.
Have we seen him fight before this?
No, I don't think so. I think you're right. This is the first real fight. I mean, he might have been, I think you're right. I think this is the first real fight we've seen. And what a beast.
Yeah.
Especially after being stabbed, he hits that assailant sword, he breaks the ribs and then kills her. It's like, holy smokes.
Yeah. Crocus getting his dream crushed, as was inevitable.
I'm sorry, Crocus. I do have a tear rolling down my eye for you here.
No. And then Quick Ben unleashing Pearl. I mean, really cool imagery. Yeah. Really tragic.
Yeah.
Pearl knowing what was coming.
Yeah. And I did the audio book as I listened to the list, and Lister reads it so very, very quiet and soft. And Pearl, man, I feel really bad, really soft. That makes me feel really sad. And I feel that this will say too much, but I feel bad for any victim of that particular implement of death.
Yeah. Which is interesting because, we can't really say more. Yeah. We'll
that's all I've got.
About it later, I think. More. Yeah, when we get there. All right. Do you have any final thoughts tonight?
No, just truly excited as we start to prepare for the next few acts of this book, because we're well past our halfway point. And,
yeah, we're getting there.
And it's starting to, it's been nothing but acceleration, but this is where it really starts getting amazing.
It's always really exciting stuff coming up.
It's been amazing all the time, but it just really jacks it up to 11. From here on out, I feel like there's a lot of 11. Now there's some slow parts, but for the most part, it's pretty much 11.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, good job tonight.
Great job. Great show.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
You. Yep.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at HorseFrogProductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@HorseFrogProductions.com.